carcinoma of gastrointestinal tract. So am I audible? If not, respond me. Yes? Okay. Then today I will talk about the carcinoma of gastrointestinal tract. This is the anatomy of gastrointestinal tract, which you have learned by this time from your basic science knowledge of anatomy. And this is showing the extension of gastrointestinal tract, starting from esophagus and ending at the anus. And these are the different parts like esophagus, stomach, and you can see pancreas, liver, large colon, small intestine, and then the anus. This is required to study the distribution of the cancer according to the anatomic site. So what is carcinoma? Again, you have read the very nice definition of carcinoma from pathology book. So just here it will be like a recapitulation of your previous knowledge. Like carcinoma actually is a type of cancer. In layman term, we call it cancer. We call it carcinoma. So this usually starts in the cells or sometimes in the tissue, lining the organs such as the liver, kidney, and the gastrointestinal tract. And the carcinomas means they constitute the abnormal cells, and which divides without control. And they are able to spread other parts of the body, but do not always means some cancer, they remain inside, which we call carcinoma in situ, and that will not spread to the other part of the body. So that is there. So all the carcinoma do not spread from the site of the origin. Gastrointestinal cancer, when we talk about this refers to the malignant conditions arising from the gastrointestinal tract, and they occur both in men as well as in the women. The symptoms of gastrointestinal tract cancer or malignancy, that depends upon the underlying organ affected, and most of the part of the gastrointestinal tract is tubular in structure. So if there is a mass, then that will cause obstruction, and if it is in the upper part, like in the esophagus, there will be difficulty in swallowing. If it is in the lower part, there will be difficulty in defecation. And beside this, in advanced stage, there may be abnormal bleeding from the various sides of the gastrointestinal tract and the other associated problem according to the organ involved. The treatment, again, that depends upon the location of the tumor as well as the type of the tumor. And so these cancer, they may arise from any part of the gastrointestinal tract, and which I will talk later on. And the gastrointestinal cancer is a term that is used for the group of the cancer that affects the digestive system. And this usually includes the cancer of the esophagus, gallbladder, liver, pancreas, stomach, and the bowel. And today I will cover the cancer of esophagus, stomach, pancreas, and the colorectal cancer. First of all, let us start with the cancer arising from the esophagus. There are usually two types of the cancer which arise from the esophagus. One is the adenocarcinoma, another is the squamous cell carcinoma. And let us talk briefly about the adenocarcinoma of the esophagus. It usually arises from the lower third of the esophagus, and typically it originates from the Barrett's mucosa, which is found in the lower part of the esophagus, and the incidence is increasing every year according to the reports from the various journals. And then now it is found to be 5 out of 100,000. Overall, 5-year survival is 13%. Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There was some disturbance in the background, that's why. And the next type is the squamous cell carcinoma. The squamous cell carcinoma is not very common in the Caucasian, but is more common in the Asian and Africans. So that is why it is seen in Iran as well as the parts of Africa and China. It can occur in any part of the esophagus. Almost all the tumors in upper esophagus, they are squamous cancer. That means the tumors arising from the upper part of the esophagus, they are squamous in type. Regarding the causes and the risk factor for the esophageal cancer, the exact cause is not yet known. So there are various hypotheses which I'm not going to discuss in this lecture. And regarding the risk factors, many risk factors are there, like smoking is a universal risk factor. This is also here. And then the male sex, eclampsia, and gastroesophageal reflux disease, obesity, and the elderly age group, Barrett's esophagus, and alcohol consumption. So these are some of the established risk factors for the esophageal cancer. But besides this, also there are so many which I'm not going to discuss here. Now, regarding the symptoms of the esophageal cancer, how the patient with esophageal cancer it presents to you. Usually, they complain of as you know, the function of the esophagus is to swallow the either liquid or solid. So, initial complaint will be the difficulty will be painful or difficulty in swallowing. Initially, it will be for the solid foods, and later on, it will be also for the liquid foods. So this is how the patient will present to you. Besides this, sometimes some patients they complain of feeling like food is stuck, something is in the esophagus which is not going down or not coming up, like food is stuck in the throat or in the chest. And besides this, there may be weight loss, because initially there will no weight loss, but if it persists for months, then there will be definitely weight loss, because the patient will be unable to swallow. And once the patient is unable to swallow, that means there is the inadequate nutrients to the patient. That is why the weight will be lost. And there will be pain in the chest, usually behind the sternum. And then some patients say that I am having the chest pain, and some may complain that I am feeling the burning sensation in the throat or in the central part of the chest. Even there may be hoarseness as well as the cough. And they will also complain of the persistent indigestion and heartburn. And how to diagnose and how to treat the esophageal cancer. And for diagnosis, the simple investigations which is available in most of the places in our country, even at the district level nowadays, is endoscopy of esophagus or esophagoscopy, whatever you say. So that will visualize the underlying problem, and at the same time you can take biopsy and brushings for a histopathological purpose. And if you think that this is not enough, and then if the patient is presenting in late stage, or if the cancer is already advanced or metastasized to the other parts of the body, then at that time you should ask for the CT scan of the chest and abdomen. And even if you want to see in detail, or if you want to know in detail about the metastasis of the cancer, and then if you want to evaluate the organ system, whether they are affected or not, then you can go for the PET, positron emission tomography. So that is also available here, but this is very costly and it's not required in almost all the cases of the esophageal cancer. And the endoscopic ultrasound, which is available in Kathmandu also, this can also be done just to visualize the tumors or the malignant condition arising from the esophagus. So these are the different modality of investigation tools which are available for making the diagnosis of the esophageal cancer. And then the questions comes about the treatment. Again, it depends upon the type, and then whether it is the early stage or advanced stage. Various factors are there. If it is localized, sometimes you can go for the resection of the affected part, radiotherapy, chemotherapy, and combination of all. So this is how I think the topic is very vague. So that is why I cannot talk in detail about the every type of the cancer. So I will be talking just overview about the cancer according to the organ involved. So with that, now the esophageal cancer is over. And this thing, I think it will be discussed in detail in surgery as well as mostly in surgery later on. And then, so I will be giving the just overview of the cancer in today's lecture. Now come to the gastric carcinoma. The gastric carcinoma is the third leading cause of cancer death worldwide. It's most common in China, Japan, and Korea. And if you look at the incidence, it is 40 per 100,000 males. And incidence is low in female as compared to the male. And it rises sharply after 50 years of the age. So again, as other carcinoma, in elderly age, this also rises in elderly age group. And the adenocarcinoma is the most common type of gastric carcinoma, which arises from the mucus secreting cell. And beside this, there is another type of the carcinoma in the stomach, that is gastric lymphoma. It's a rare tumor which accounts for less than 5% of all gastric malignancy. And the overall prognosis of the gastric cancer is poor. Less than 30% will survive for 5 years. So the overall prognosis is very bad. And if we talk about the risk factors for gastric carcinoma, there are so many risk factors. Fortunately, some of the risk factors, if you can find out in advanced stage, in early stage, then you can treat that and you can cure that, like H. pylori, Helicobacter pylori. This is a very important risk factor, which you can detect in a patient coming for the investigation of the peptic ulcer disease, and you can treat it. And smoking, similarly, you can quit it, and alcohol, you can quit, and the dietary association and autoimmune gastritis. And out of this, if we talk about the dietary association, which is very important, what we are eating, that plays very important role in producing the carcinoma of the stomach. It is found that the gastric cancer is increased with certain foods. For example, if you consume the various traditional salt preserved foods, because before the discovery of the refrigerator, this was adding salt, mixing with salt. This was one of the technique for the preservation of the food. That, as well as the salt, it is also found that salt per se, if you are consuming an excess amount, and that is also found to be the established risk factor for the gastric carcinoma. And the risk of gastric carcinoma is decreased with high intake of the fruits and vegetables. This is universal truth. Fruits and vegetables, they are very good for health. This is proved from the very beginning, from the very ancient time. So it's good. And it's not clear which constituent in the fruit and vegetables play a significant role in the gastric cancer prevention. Though it's not clear, but in general, the fruits, they are found to be very much beneficial from health point of view for every aspect. If you talk about the cardiac status or renal status or general status, and fruits and vegetables, they are proved to be good for health. And similarly, vitamin C, which is found in most of the citrus fruit, it is found to be protective. And consumption of the green tea is possibly associated with decreased risk of the gastric cancer. In some of the Japanese studies, they have pointed out this. And the processed meat and the N-nitroso compounds, they have positive association with the risk of the gastric cancer. This is very important because the processed meat is very bad, and during the course of preparation or processing, it produces the various carcinogenic substances. And besides that, the N-nitroso compound is found in various foods as well as even in some of the medicines, which is a risk factor for the gastric cancer. Now, regarding the symptoms of the gastric carcinoma, it depends when the patient is presenting. If the patient is presenting in an early stage, the patient will complain only indigestion and stomach discomfort and bloated feeling after eating something, and mild nausea and loss of appetite and heartburn. So this is in early stage. If the patient is presenting in advanced stage, there will be difficulty in swallowing. There may be vomiting and blood in the stool, weight loss for no other reason, stomach pain, jaundice, and the ascites, and sometimes you may get the lump on examination, and that will come later on. Now, regarding the diagnosis of the cancer of the stomach, in advanced stage, you may get the mass in the epigastric region. There will be a typical hard mass you may feel, and then you may be able to find the ascites also, and also hepatomegaly if there is metastasis. And after this, you can have the clinical impression of the underlying carcinoma of the stomach. Then you can go for the investigations. Though here it is mentioned the barium X-ray first. Actually, you can do endoscopy first also. You can do endoscopy like endoscopy of the upper gastrointestinal tract. That will give you the more information about the malignancy arising from the stomach. And then at the same time, you can take biopsy also. And barium X-ray, yes, though it's not done as a first line, but this is always the gold standard. And then after that, you can go for the CT scan of the chest, abdomen, and pelvis. So this will tell you about the exact situation and the status of the mass as well as the metastasis to other adjacent organs. And you can also ask for the endoscopic ultrasound. So these are the very valuable tool. Out of these, if you simply do endoscopy of upper GIT and then the ultrasound of the abdomen, so that will give you the very valuable information next to the examination of the patient. And in advanced stage, if you just put your hand in the abdomen, you can feel the mass, or you may get the ascites also. Now, regarding the treatment of the carcinoma of the stomach, the surgery, again, it depends upon the mass. If it is the localized, you can go for the surgical resection, and you can go for the chemotherapeutics agent, and then you can go for the radiation, or in some situation in combination. So this I will not talk in detail in this lecture. Now, after this, let us talk about the carcinoma of the pancreas. It affects the 10 to 15 per 100,000 population in the Western world. This is more common in the men, and some of the risk factors are increased age, smoking, and the chronic pancreatitis. And there is also some reports. There are reports, and the patient has a history of the genetic predisposition that is seen in about 5 to 10% of the cases. And overall survival after diagnosis of carcinoma pancreas is 3 to 5%. And if there is metastasis, the survival is from 3 months to 5 months. So metastasis presents means the prognosis is bad. Now, what are the causes and what are the risk factors? It's very difficult to tell the exact cause of the carcinoma of the pancreas, but there are various hypotheses, and they pointing out the most likely cause of the carcinoma of the pancreas. And regarding the risk factor, this is more common in the smoker and common after 50 years, and the background history of the chronic pancreatitis and obesity. And similarly, the African American, they are at high risk, a diabetic patient, and the patient having the positive family history, they are also at the high risk of developing carcinoma of the pancreas. Now, regarding the types of pancreatic cancer, the common type is the adenocarcinoma. This arises from the pancreatic duct, and it constitutes 90%. Most of the patients, they will have the advanced disease during the presentation because it's diagnosed late, that is why. And it usually affects the 10 to 15 per 100,000 population in the Western world. And after 70 years, it rises further to 100 per 100,000 population per year. And another tumor is the neuroendocrine tumor. So this arises in the pancreas, but it grows slowly and it has got better prognosis. So there is nothing to worry about this one. The main problem is with the adenocarcinoma. Regarding the diagnosis, again, you can go for the gastrointestinal radiologic evaluation. Here again, I would like to add the ultrasound. Ultrasound abdomen is a very valuable tool that gives the very important information. You can go for the helical spiral CT. Accuracy is high. And ERCP, endoscopic retrograde cholangiopancreatography, and the MRI and endoscopic ultrasound and biopsy. These are the different investigation tools available with us. But out of this, we should always start with the simple investigations like endoscopy of upper GIT, ultrasound of the abdomen, and if that is not giving information, the next in such cases will be the ERCP, endoscopic retrograde cholangiopancreatography. This is very invasive modality of this endoscopic procedure. And regarding the treatment of the pancreatic cancer, surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, and a combination. Actually, it's very difficult first to diagnose and they treat carcinoma of pancreas, but the surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy, these are the principles of treatment of carcinoma anywhere in the body. Similarly, the heading are mentioned, but detail I cannot mention here because of the time limit, as well as I'm not going to discuss in detail about the individual cancer. So that is why. So this will be just briefly about the carcinoma of the pancreas. Then let us talk about the tumors arising from the small intestine. Actually, the tumors in the small intestine, they are not very common. So if you look at the prevalence, only the 5% of the gastrointestinal tumors, they arise from the small intestine. And this includes adenocarcinoma, neuroendocrine tumor, and lymphoma. And this usually occurs in the middle age or the later part of the life. And the early diagnosis is very difficult in such case. So it's usually diagnosed late. Now, regarding the investigation, the enteroscopic is endoscopic procedure, and a capsule endoscopy, and the mesenteric angiography and CT scan. These are the investigations available, and which you can advise according to the requirement and according to the availability of the investigation tool. And once you make the diagnosis, again here also the treatment is surgical resection first as far as possible. So if it is already metastasized, and then in those cases you may have to go for the combination like surgery plus chemotherapy, or sometimes you may do the radiotherapy depending upon the underlying condition of the patient. Now I think this last part is the colorectal cancer is rare in the developing countries. So we are in the developing country. That is why we are fortunate that this is in fact it's not very common. I have not seen in practice also, but it's more common in the developed country. This is the second leading cause of cancer death in the Western countries, and it's common usually after the age of 50. And regarding the risk factor for the colorectal cancer, and there are some high risk factors like consumption of the red meat and saturated animal fat, and then low risk is those who are taking the dietary fibers, fruits, and vegetables. So for vegetarians, it's good news. And some non-dietary risk factors are also there, like colorectal adenoma, long-standing extensive ulcerative colitis, Crohn's colitis, and other factors like obesity, smoking, and alcohol. So these are some of the dietary and the non-dietary risk factors for the colorectal cancer. As I already told you, that this is not very common in the developing country. So even then, so everyone must be cautious about this. And then in developed countries, the colonoscopy every 10 years is mandatory because it's very common there. So they don't want to miss it. So that is why they advise for every 10 years colonoscopy. Regarding investigation, again, colonoscopy, and you can take biopsy, and the CT colonography, virtual colonoscopy. So these are the modality of the investigation In most of the cases, the colonoscopy, and you can have the very detailed information about the colorectal cancer. And after that, if you think you can take biopsy if you think it's needed, and then if there are some polyps, you can remove at the time of colonoscopy also. And the next, beside that, beyond that, also we have the CT colonography, which will give you the further detailed information regarding this colorectal cancer, and accordingly you can plan the treatment and manage the patient. Now, regarding the management, again the same thing I'm repeating here: the surgery, chemotherapy, and the palliative treatment. So this is all. So with this, thank you.